All right, super. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. Welcome to our Tuesday, November 9th, Oceanside Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting. The first item on our agenda is a call to order. So we're calling to order at, I believe it is 6:02. And we're going to go ahead and start with a roll call. So I'm going to say my board colleague's name and they are going to stay here. So I'll go ahead and I'll start out with Vice President Eric Joyce.
Here.
Thank you. Board Clerk Raquel Alvarez.
Here.
Thank you. Eleanor Evans. Uh-oh, I didn't see Eleanor. Is she back on?
I don't see her. Let me check on that, Stacy.
No problem. And Mike Blessing.
Here.
All right, thank you. So we're just going to wait a second. I can do a report out and come back to this. Actually, we have the Pledge of Allegiance next. So do I have? Let's start. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So if you could put your hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America. For kingdom come and, oh shoot, what happened? Sorry. Oh my gosh, my mic.
We hear you.
Oh, okay, I was done, all right.
Now it's off.
Okay, I'm having some technical difficulties here. So, Pledge of Allegiance is done. Moving on to public report of action taken in closed session. I'm looking at my board colleagues. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Item 1D, the board voted unanimously to approve a stipulated expulsion of student ID number 1030842 for 2 semesters commencing on November 10th, 2021 through June 9th, 2021. I'd like to report out on item 1F. The board voted unanimously to approve the resignation of employee ID number 174155, a certificated employee assigned as a second grade teacher through a separation and release of liability agreement. That's all I have to report out of closed session. Moving on to item 2D. And I just want to say, Eleanor Evans, is she in the room? Do we have our other board member yet? I'm not seeing her in the room. All right, moving on to, we'll go ahead and do student representative. We'll start with Surfside. I see Evan Hemmerly in the room. Would you like to share out?
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Vitale, and guests. My name is Evan Hemmerly, and I'm the student representative for Surfside Educational Academy this evening. Congratulations to our September Students of the Month from Surfside. Vanessa Mendoza from Surfside High School and Yamlet Cruz from Surfside Academy Independent Study received a certificate of recognition, a Surfside t-shirt, and lots of words of affirmation from their hard work and positive representation of Surfside. Great job, Vanessa and Yamlet. A second congratulations goes out to Vanessa Mendoza for receiving the City of Surfside Chamber of Commerce Rising Star recognition. Vanessa was selected as a senior student representative of Surfside High School. She has demonstrated conscientiousness toward her classwork and has gained the reputation of an outstanding, hardworking student among her teachers. After graduation, Vanessa plans to attend Maricopa College and enroll in their nursing program. Next slide, please. The Western Surf Association recognized Bison Sharp for taking second place in the men's open division. Bison is an 11th grader attending Surfside High School. This is a great accomplishment and demonstrates Bison's skill and agility. Congratulations, Bison. Way to go. A shout out to one of our community volunteers, Miss Sally Haggerty, who donates her time assisting students in our independent study program. Her area of expertise is math, and she has done a good job with tutoring the students. Along with the independent study teachers do a great job with supporting students working around personal schedules and family obligations to ensure student success. On November 2nd, Surfside enjoyed and celebrated Dia de los Muertos, an altar complete with marigold flowers, pan de muerto, and photos of Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera were displayed for students and staff to enjoy. Students also participated in traditional festive activities. Special thanks to Mr. Mike Gomez and staff members who organized this event. Surfside is currently preparing for our annual holiday pop-up shop. This shop will provide students with the opportunity to shop for their loved ones to provide a special Christmas gift to them. We are receiving donations for clothing and other gently used items. A special thanks to Felicia Andrade and Donald Vivian, who have worked together along with our staff to provide this to our students. If you would like to donate, please contact Surfside at 760-901-8600. All donations are greatly appreciated. The last day to donate is Tuesday, November 16th. On October 15th, students, staff, administration, and family members lined the halls of the campus with excitement to participate in the Surfside Grad Walk. Traditions from both direct instruction as well as independent study were merged into this single event. Students who completed the grad requirements this past quarter decorated caps, crowns, and other attire, then walked the hall to the cheers and congratulations of staff and family. The final act for each grad was to ring that bell, a tradition borrowed from independent study. There were plenty of smiles all the way around. A total of 32 early graduates completed their high school credit requirements. Here are a few highlights from the event.
On Friday, October 15th, Surfside Educational Academy celebrated high school students who graduated at the end of quarter one with a grad walk, a school tradition. Students decorated a crown, lined up to have their name announced, and walked through the school hallway as staff, students, friends, and family cheered them on. Once students reached the end of the grad walk, they rang a bell that is located at the entrance of the school. This bell represents putting your education first and symbolizes that it is the end of one journey and the start of another. It was a great day to be a shark. Reporting from Surfside Academy, I am Vladimir Escobedo. On Friday, September 24th,
Was that it? That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Congratulations, Sharks. Sorry.
Super. All right, our next student is from El Camino High School, Isaiah Aguilar. Hi. Hi, Isaiah. What do you got for us?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Board President Dr. Biggin and the rest of the board members, as well as to Superintendent Dr. Vitali and her executive staff, and all who are present this evening for giving me time to speak. My name is Isaias Aguilar, and I am the ASB President and the Student Representative from El Camino High. Next slide, please. The week of October 4th to October 8th, Sharon Strong and a few students from the broadcast journalism class traveled to New York a few weeks ago for the All-American High School Film Festival, where they earned first place for their PSA short film, The Masked Robber. October 8th, El Camino had another football game where our honorary captain was the legendary Herb Mayer. Our student section had a pink out night in honor of breast cancer awareness. October 11th to October 15th was our annual homecoming week. Our homecoming theme was dancing through the decades. Each day we had a different spirit day, which coordinated with our decades, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we held homecoming court lunchtime activities where we announced our lower classmen prince and princesses like musical chairs, painting, paper airplane contest, and more. On Thursday, our senior homecoming court had their fashion show in front of the library. Can you go back to the last slide, please? Thank you. On October 15th, our pep rally was outside with a huge crowd that watched cheer, prom, and ECDC perform, and we got to see our homecoming king Isaiah Tuapala get crowned. Later that night, our halftime show, we had hundreds of students participate in our big show. We ended the show with crowning our homecoming queen, Caitlin and fireworks. October 16th was our homecoming dance. We had a great turnout, outsold our record of 1,000+ tickets. Next slide. The week of October 18th to October 22nd, our rock band club featured a couple of their club members who played live music for us at lunch. Our girls volleyball team had their senior night against Oceanside High, where we won against them 3-1. And our athlete of the week was Sam Souza, who was our kicker on our varsity football team. The week of October 25th to October 29th, our PALS team held a Red Ribbon Spirit Week filled with lunchtime activities and fun dress-up days. And our cheer cats held their annual club cheer camp. And on Friday, October 29th, we had our Pop Warner night, as well as our city rival football game against OHS, where we won 39-6. Our student section theme was White Out. Our honorary captain was Miss Jamie Miller, and our athlete of the week was Jasmine Liabao. Finally, a more closer look into El Camino's world of athletics. Our football team beat our city rivals OHS 39-6, and we advanced to CIF playoffs versus St. Augustine. Our volleyball team had their senior night on October 22nd, and on October 26th, they had their end of their season and their playoff game. On October 2nd, the SoCal Invitational took place, where our cross-country varsity boys team took second place, and our JV girls team also took second place. On October 28th, our cross-country boys won their league meet. On October 20th, Jasmine Laval won the league tournament in our girls golf division. And on October 20th, Janae Laval placed 5th at the same tournament. And both girls advanced to CIF. Thank you, everyone, for giving me time to present. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, Isaiah. Great job. All right. Exciting things going on at our high schools. Our next speaker is Gabby Kimbrell from Oceanside High School.
Good evening. I'm Gabby Kimbrell, and I'm Oceanside's ASB president. Thank you for having me, board and Superintendent Dr. Vitale. So you can go to the next slide. Perfect. So what we've been up to, our ASB has, we made a flower wall. We had our Health Academy week. We had our financial blitz week. We had our rivalry spirit week. We had our spooktacular and choose not to use. So you can go to the next slide. So our flower wall, we had beautiful pink carnations donated from different flower shops throughout Oceanside. Our woodshop teacher also helped us, and our lead custodian. It was a great organization for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If you go to the next slide, you can see that our ASB team has worked really hard to make sure that We just had a flower wall. It was really pretty. The next slide. So we had our health week for physical and mental health. Pete and Mooch, our mascots, properly showed us how to properly brush our teeth, to wear a mask, and modeled how to put sunscreen on and eating habits during lunch. For the next few slides, there's some of our teachers with Pete and Mooch. They're applying sunscreen. There's some toothbrushes. If you go to the next slide. We have also more pictures of just our pirates out at lunch. The next slide. Perfect. So the financial aid blitz week, our counseling office was a huge help. We made sure we brought awareness to how students and especially seniors can apply for FAFSA and CATA.
We lost you, Gabby.
Our next slide is about Rivalry Spirit Week. We played El Camino October 29th. It was one of the best, it's our biggest rivalry. Unfortunately, they did beat us, but we had a lot of excitement in our stands. There was a TikTok. We interviewed some football players to get their view on the week, and we also had 5 days of Spirit Days. Our first day was anything but a backpack day. Our second day was Country Day. You can see it in the corner. We had Jersey Day, and we had Green Out. There you go. There's some people, anything but a backpack. Our next slide is about the spectacular that our show choir hosted. There was live performances from each of our show choir groups. They had food, and they also had a costume contest. And lastly, but not least, on Wednesday, we the 27th of October, True Care hosted an event that included a scavenger hunt on campus to just encourage kids not to use drugs. It was a Red Ribbon Week that week as well. And then what's on the horizon? ASB has partnered with Grocery Outlet. We're gonna be there 2 times this month, just bagging groceries for the community. We have a Toys for Tots. ASB and Grocery Outlet are working together to collect toys, gifts, and donations for that. Our cheer team has also done a toy drive for supporting Oceanside Hope for the holidays. We have our Spirit Days coming up for our basketball season, which is really exciting. And then we have our Spirit Week for our finals week. And that is all. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gabby. All right, moving right along on our agenda, I am moving over to item 2E, approval of the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the following items being removed from the agenda. Item 5T, 5U, and item 8A. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I have a first and a second. Any questions?
I have a request to pull 5A.
5A as well. All right. So do I have a second for that too? I'll ask one more time. So I made a motion. I will amend it to add 5A. So I'm pulling item 5T, 5U, 5A, and 8A from the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we got a first and a second. All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the approval of the agenda with those items, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 3, the superintendent's report. Dr. Vitale, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. It's so nice to see all the wonderful activities going on at the high school. And I'm worn out just from hearing all the events that they're involved in, but it's very, very exciting. And I just want to reiterate what was shared. It was so fun to attend the Rising Star event that the Chamber of Commerce started. And that was the inaugural event was on November 2nd. where we recognize Vanessa Mendoza from Surfside, Julissa Beltran Ramos from Oceanside High School, and Gianna Stafford from El Camino. The students, along with some family members and some staff, and were able to tell a little bit about their story and why they were a rising star. And it was beautiful to hear from them. And really just want to thank the Chamber of Commerce again for this opportunity to acknowledge our students. And not only that, but they have made $20,000 worth of potential scholarship money available for these students. So at the end of the year, all of our rising stars will have an opportunity to compete for that. I don't know if they're going to break it up into smaller amounts or have one great amount. I hope it's 20 amounts of 1,000, but that'll be for them to determine. And we just really appreciate our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. And that will be a monthly event, and I look forward to attending that again next month.
Wow, thanks for sharing. Moving on to item 4, board reports. I'll turn it over to Eric Joyce, our Vice President. Do you have a board report tonight?
Sure, just real briefly, attended a couple of different events, attended a couple of Dia de Muertos events that were wonderful around the different neighborhoods. And then this past weekend, I attended the Valley Arts Festival, which was put on by Studio Ace in cooperation with the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians, who are local Oceanside indigenous peoples. So there was storytelling, there was music, there was learning through arts for children and adults, and fry bread, which ran out before I even got a chance to touch it. It sounded and smelled delicious. The celebration of Oceanside's indigenous people who lived in this land for at least the last 10,000 years, which, if you think about that number, it's just incredible. And so in honor of this month, it was tremendous to attend the first annual, and I can't wait till next year. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up, while it's not a single event, I've spoken to a lot of different staff members at a lot of different campuses who are really asking for support of their youngest learners and students who are still learning to be in school. And just wanted to give a shout out to all of those who are supporting them and saying that, you know, I heard you, and that we do need to be considering all of the things that we've been living with for the last couple of years and how those effects impact especially our youngest kids who may not know how to process all the trauma and difficulties we've been going through. So just wanted to recognize that in this moment too. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric, for sharing. I'll turn it over to Raquel Alvarez.
Let's see. I guess for me lately, the only thing has been the football games and celebrating our students in sports and stuff. Overall, that's been my first outings since I got sick. So it's been interesting to be, or fun actually, to be able to see students and get out and see families and just in an environment that I love to be in. So slowly but surely getting out there. But right now, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Raquel. Mike Flessing.
No report this evening.
All right, thank you, Mike. Eleanor?
I just want to emphasize what Trustee Joyce alluded to. And this is really a very important month. And I just want to share that on August 30th, 1990, President George H. Bush, the daddy, proclaimed November to be National American Indian Heritage Month. This is especially significant to Oceanside, North County, as well as the county of San Diego, because San Diego County has 19 reservations, more than any place in the United States. The first 3 missions were established in San Diego and Oceanside, and they're all exactly 1 day walk apart. With the Obama administration, November became the Native American Heritage Month. Regardless, these folks remain one of the most marginalized groups in the United States and very much omitted from the United States history textbooks and U.S. world history and geography textbooks. Okay, which to me only emphasized the importance of ethnic studies, that all people have the opportunity to share their story and their voices to be heard. And for all of us to learn the positive contributions of all people in our society. Ethnic studies is American history. Okay. I was invited to attend and present at the CTA LGBTQ conference in Palm Springs, and it was one of the more successful events of the year for me. I'm continuing my work with the Leon L. Williams County of San Diego Human Relations Commission, and hopefully more and more of our citizens, our parents, can be involved with that, especially in terms of responding to surveys and what you feel the needs are with the Oceanside community. For the sake of transparency, I attended the CTA State Council Representative Assembly, and once again, we talk about the fact that our teachers, we have a teacher shortage, huge teacher shortage. And by the same token, we have a number of our students that are adjusting to coming back to the classroom. So I think it's really very important that we support our classrooms, support our teachers, and support our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Mine's a little more lighthearted. I did some site visits to Libby Elementary and Del Rio Elementary, visit 2 classrooms of our amazing teachers, as well as went over to Chavez Middle School and saw a little lunchtime concert. So it's great to starting to get back out there with my board colleagues. So, and I also went to the game with Raquel. So and saw a little bit of the action between OHS and El Camino. So that was exciting. So moving right along, we're moving to item 5, general consent items. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
All right, I have a first and a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second.
Just to clarify, oops, I'm sorry. Just to clarify something,
Yeah, you can.
Stacy?
Yes.
You can promote Todd.
Ann?
I'm sorry.
I know what's going on. Hold on, can I hear Mike? Mike, go ahead.
Do I have the floor?
Yeah, you have the floor. Sorry.
Okay. No, okay. I don't know if I did something or not. I just wondering. We should have asked it when you pulled the item, Eric, for the minutes. Do we just need more work with it for next month, or polish something up, or on item 5A? It's on the consent calendar. Or I know we're not supposed to talk about it because we pulled it, but I should have asked.
Yes.
Is that appropriate or not appropriate by now since we removed it?
We're gonna review it and we'll bring it back.
We'll bring back all 3 items in December.
Okay, I just was wondering what the issue with the minutes were. But okay.
All right, and so we have public comment on 2 items, item 5K and 5P. So let's go ahead and hear those public comments before we take a vote.
Madison.
All right, am I on?
Yeah, you are. I didn't recognize your name because it wasn't your name, Todd Madison. So Todd, you're up. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll change that for next time. Sorry about that. All right. So I thought I'd highlight some things from the report that I brought up in the past. First, I thank the Personnel Commission for their service on this. I know what it's like to serve on such committees. It takes dedication and a willingness to help. Appreciate that. Looking at the data, I see some interesting things. In every regular board meeting, we see personnel orders. This meeting has them. If we look at the report section on personnel actions, virtually all the statistics and categories that match what's reported in the orders do not match the numbers reported in this report. For example, under resignations, we see 70 listed in the report, but if one totals up the orders for fiscal 2021, there are 65 in classified staff, 31 in certificated, for a total of 96 resignations. Ditto for retirements, which show 27 on this report and a total of 62 in the PAOs. I'm not sure if this report is incorrect or if the PAOs are incorrect or if there's just some difference in reporting periods that I'm not seeing here. Using the data in this report to look at the hiring process, we see the district posted 64 jobs last year and had a total of 951 applications, which is about 15 applications per job. It doesn't really seem like OUSD has a problem getting people to apply for jobs when they're open, at least last year. Farther down, we see the applicants were tested, 330 of them passed. I assume this represents the final pool of qualified applicants to be interviewed for selection, and that means about 5 qualified people applied for every open job. Having hired hundreds in my career, I can tell you that getting 5 qualified people to apply for every open position is hardly a sign of difficulty in hiring. Most of the time, aside from the Great Recession, my HR department would love to have had 5 people to send to me for interviews. Is this the teacher shortage Eleanor mentioned, or perhaps that's a myth? The report is noticeably missing some very key numbers that any management interested in making good financial decisions would have: exit interview data. I've spoken about this before. The idea that the district doesn't really care enough about why people leave to ask them is a bit mystifying. Perhaps because they would find out very few OUSD employees are leaving for better pay elsewhere, maybe close to zero. The point here is one that I've made many times before. Any business that gets 5 applicants for position and doesn't have people leaving for better pay elsewhere doesn't have a problem with pay levels. That much is obvious. A district that uses a supposed problem with hiring and retention as a reason to give itself huge extra bonus raises when the data shows differently, especially when that means it will become necessary to cut from our kids, is obviously engaging in financial mismanagement. The bottom line is, if you're going to take candy from our babies to give to yourselves, you may want to work on the cover story a little bit better. School choice is the answer, californiaschoolchoice.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have another public comment on 5P.
Todd Madison.
Oh, unmuted again. Great. Thank you. So to me, a budget dweeb like me, this is probably the most interesting item on the agenda tonight. For the benefit of those watching, the Fiscal Crisis Management Assistant Team, which is commonly called FCMAT, is a state entity brought in when a district is in dire financial condition. FCMAT was brought in to unravel Sweetwater's financial disaster when the district was on the verge of bankruptcy and put under state and county control. Sweetwater's problems are amazingly similar to Oceanside Unified's. Their financial crisis was caused by a priority given to their own pay, regardless of whether it was best for the district or the kids. FCMAT found the district misrepresented its financial position, possibly to the extent of fraud, to justify giving itself extra bonus raises. Now, in Oceanside's case, I would not expect any fraud, but the problem is the same: a district in financial trouble ignoring its deficit to give itself extra bonus raises. Similar problem, similar cause. I'm not quite sure why it takes FCMAT to identify this for the district. The County Office of Education already told the district in September that they were going to have to identify up to $30 million in future cuts in order to avoid being taken over. The district's response was to throw another log on the fire, give itself extra bonus raises in October, adding $10 million to that number. We know this story. I'm missing how that makes sense, but I'm sure it makes sense to the people benefiting from those raises, including a superintendent who will see total compensation go from $340,000 to $355,000, an administrative staff that will go from a median $164,000 to $172,000, and of course the president of the teachers union, whose total compensation will go up from $194,000 to $203,000 a year. It seems like that works. Well, maybe for everybody but our kids. We have a CBO with total compensation that is now likely around $223,000 and a director of budget likely around $160K. Do we not have the expertise to figure this out ourselves? In the last meeting, we heard how we would close the budget gap by, quote, finding efficiencies, and the money would be found, quote, elsewhere. The deficit hole is equal to almost every dollar the district spends on education outside pay and benefits. If we can find $30 million by turning off the lights in the gym when they're not in use, that would be great, but it's very unlikely. Is the elsewhere mentioned perhaps underneath couch cushions in the administrative offices? It would be interesting to see what FCMAT says. Perhaps the entire point here is to have FCMAT do the dirty work, to tell the district what they feel should be cut so that the district comes here to the board meeting to lay off people or cut some other expense that impacts our kids' education. They can say, we don't want to do this. It's FCMAT forcing us to. Is all this an exercise in CYA? School choice is the answer. CaliforniaSchoolChoice.org. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our public comment for item 5. General consent items. I had a first and a second. Do we have any board discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of supporting general consent items, say aye.
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 Did I get all 5? All right. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 6, presentations. So we have presentation on 6A, and we have one public speaker for this item as well. So I'll turn it over to the district staff.
Thank you. Thank you, President Begin. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Tonight we
can.
have, thank you. Tonight we have Sherry Freeman DeLeva, who will be presenting the Prop H Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report. The Proposition H Citizens Bond Oversight Committee 2020-2021 report to the community provides an overview of the expenditure of taxpayers' funds for school construction. With the presentation of this report, the district is in compliance with the requirements of the article of the California Constitution. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Sherry Freeman DeLeva.
Thank you, Dr. Norman, and good evening, members of the board and Dr. Vitale. It's my pleasure to share the annual report for the Prop H Citizen Bond Oversight Committee with you. Next slide, please. Prop H was approved by Oceanside voters in June of 2008 to issue up to $195 million in bonds to complete the repairs and modernization established by Prop G in order to provide high-quality facility for Oceanside students. The Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, or HCBOC, was established in fall of 2008 to oversee the bond expenditures. Next slide, please. There are 3 main responsibilities of the HCBOC. The first is to review expenditure reports to make sure that the bond proceeds are used only for the purposes set forth in the bond measure, and to ensure that no proceeds are used for regular school salaries nor other operating expenses. Second, the Citizens Bond Committee wants to inform the public regarding district expenditure of bonds proceeds, and this is done in a variety of ways. There's an annual report to the Board of Education, as we're doing tonight. There's an annual report to the community, and the committee shares findings regarding district compliance as needed. Third, the HCBOC implements the roles and activities as defined by the committee bylaws. The one thing that's important to mention is that the committee does not determine which projects are to be funded. Next slide, please. There are specific guidelines regarding HCBOC membership. All the members are unpaid volunteers appointed by the Board of Education. Each member can serve a maximum of 3 consecutive 2-year terms for a total of 6 years. And the HCBOC consists of representatives from the Oceanside community. There's basically 1 from each of the categories listed, and there may be 2 on the category of members of community at large. Next slide, please. Slide 5 lists the members of the HCBOC for the 2021 fiscal year. I'm not going to read all the names to you. I know you can do that, but these are the members that met in the committee meetings last year. Slide 6. The HCBOC provides information to the community in English and in Spanish in the ways that I mentioned in the annual report to the community posted on the website, this annual presentation, which usually takes place in September, but because of COVID and the delayed timeline and return to in-person learning, we needed to postpone to this presentation in November. The website is updated on a regular basis, and all the HCBOC meetings are open to the public. All the reports are posted online, and they are available in printed version upon request, and the members also respond to questions from the community. Slide number 7, please. Slide 7 describes the information regarding the specific meetings. Usually, regular meetings are held in the district office boardroom. However, because of COVID, the meetings for the 2021 fiscal year were held virtually, and they were held on the dates that you can see listed. Our first meeting for this fiscal year will be held tomorrow. All meetings are open to the public, as I mentioned, and the agendas and the minutes are posted on the district website. Next slide, please. This slide shows the budget breakdown for the 2021 fiscal year. You can see the blue graph shows the total budget of more than 259 million. And as of June 30th of this year, the district had received over 200 million in bond funds. The green graph shows the actual expenditures. You can see that the amount expended, as shown, was more than $200 million, and the remaining funds for Prop H show in the yellow portion of the graph approximately $56 million. Next slide, please. Each year, an independent audit is required, and the audit for the 2019-2020 fiscal year was accepted by the board on February of this year. The audit results showed that the accounting systems are functioning efficiently and effectively for Prop H. The tests conducted showed 0 findings, and no further recommendations were made regarding Prop H funds. The 2021 audit will be performed in the first quarter of the year 2022 for the fiscal year ending in June of this year. Seems a little confusing, but we're always 1 year behind on the audit. The complete audit reports are posted on the website that is listed on this slide. Slide number 10, please. Prop H funded several projects at El Camino High School during the 2021 fiscal year, and you can see those projects are listed. And the committee reviewed the budget, the expenditures, the third-party audit report, the budget, the bond issuance and refunding, and the specific bond projects, including modernization. Slide number 11, please. This slide shows an overview of all the projects that have been completed and funded by Prop H, beginning in the school year 2009-10 up to the last year of the 2021 that we just completed. I'm not going to read all these to you because I'm sure you can see them, but as a citizen of Oceanside and as a parent of 2 proud pirate graduates, I would say that we all can see that Prop H has made a big difference in our school district for our children, that it really has improved and modernized so many of our facilities, making our schools beautiful places for children to learn in an appropriate environment. Slide number 12, please. For the 21-22 school year, fiscal year, our committee, Prop HCBOC, will oversee the status of spending on specific projects, specifically the drama room roofing at El Camino High School, the gym room and HVAC's replacement at Oceanside High, and of course the 2 big modernization projects at San Luis Rey and Jefferson Middle School. We will review expenditures for long-term projects, and we also need to recruit a new member. We have currently 1 vacancy. We need a representative who is a member of the Taxpayer Association. In order to apply for this vacancy, the details and the qualifications are listed on our website. And this concludes the annual HCBOC report for the 2021 fiscal year. Thank you for your attention. And I will turn any questions that you may have over to Dr. Norman. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Norman?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for a very detailed and very, very clear report. Appreciate it.
All right. This item doesn't require a vote. We do have one public comment on this item.
We are currently looking for Larry Berry. He is not in the audience.
Okay, so we don't have a public comment on that one. Board, I'm going to move on to our next item. Item 6B, impact of the 2020 census data on trustee area map population balance.
Yes, I'll be presenting this item, and this is also another item that is not needing a vote, but we do have a presentation for you this evening. So last decade, as you're aware, the district transitioned to a by trustee area election system to ensure compliance with the California Voting Rights Act. Following each federal census, the board must approve adjustments of trustee area boundaries if necessary. School districts with trustee area systems are required to review and, if necessary, adjust their trustee area map by March 1st of 2022 to ensure population balance. After review of the current trustee areas and based on the most recent census data, the district's demographer has determined that the trustee area map is no longer balanced based on population, and adjustments must be made under California Education Code 5019.5. Accordingly, the district's demographer and legal counsel will give a brief presentation regarding the impact of the 2020 census data on the district's trustee area population balance and discuss next steps. So to lead us through that presentation tonight is Peter Fagan from F3 Law Firm. So Peter, I turn it over to you, and thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you, Dr. Vitale, and thank you, members of the board, for the opportunity to be here. And I'm not going to repeat everything that the superintendent just said, which was part of my presentation, but the background, the objective here is to make sure that the population of each of the trustee areas are in balance. And we know that the census data from the 2020 census shows that it is out of balance by more than double the legal permissible amount. Before we really get started, though, I just want to emphasize one thing, because there's a common misperception with the public. This process has nothing to do with and has no impact at all on school attendance boundaries or where students will be going to school. This has only to do with the trustee areas for the by trustee area elections. Just a real quick background and history lesson. The California Voting Rights Act took effect back in January 1 of 2003. Prior to that, and even following that, most, if not practically all, school districts conducted their elections through an at-large voting process. The California Voting Rights Act prohibited at-large elections when it impairs the ability of a protected class to elect candidates of its choice, and thus over time, most, if not all, not quite all yet, school districts have converted to by trustee area elections. When Oceanside converted to by trustee area elections, it was during the last decade, and so it was based on the most recent census data, which was in 2010. So every 10 years after you have trustee area elections, you have to take a new look at the census data once it is released, and the 2020 census data has now been released, and then make a determination of, are you still within legal limits, which is no more than 10% variance? If so, then you can adopt the current map and just move on. If you are out of legal compliance, the population equality provision, then you have to adjust the map to bring it back into compliance. The demographer will be looking at the same things that the demographer looked at when you went to move to trustee area elections. The one that is of most importance here, based on the census data, is the equal population. And the law requires that it be as equal as practical based on the data and criteria from the most recent census total population. Again, also looking at minority voting rights, making sure there's no discrimination, equal protection, and then the same similar requirements or factors to be considered, such as topography, natural dividers, cohesiveness, contiguity, integrity and compactness of the territory, and protecting communities of interest. And this is something that will need to be done every 10 years. And so I'm not going to go on any further. I'm going to turn it over to Susan Miller from Cooperative Strategies. She's the demographer who can walk you through the demographic data that she has reviewed. And then we can talk about when the new draft maps will be prepared to be brought back to the board to review and make an adoption. But I will say one last thing. Since you're no longer in balance, the recommendation is to seek community input on any newly created map options and to hold at least one noticed and advertised public hearing before the board selects a new map. Once that the board selects a new map, the board can authorize or pass a resolution and authorize staff to submit the new map and the district decision-making process to the County Committee on School District Organization and the County Registrar for use. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan Miller. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. On this slide that you're looking at right now, it's just a quick snapshot of what the California Department of Finance released to all of us on September 20th was the redistricting data that all school districts are looking at moving forward. We are looking at about a 1.5% overall population growth. But if you look at the box below, which is the trustee areas, contrasting the 2010 census to the 2020 census, overall we have a variance of about 23.6%, and I'm happy to go through that calculation of how we get to that number. If we go along to the next page, please. This is the total population that is served within your district. And you can see that our top minority population, as Peter mentioned earlier, is our Hispanic Latino community, where they are 38.0% of the total population that's served within the district, just under the white population of 43.2%. Hence, they are focused in on as a protected group. We can go to the next page, please. This is a focus on where our Hispanic citizen voting population is located. The lighter the color, the less of the population. You can see as it gets darker over time and moves into kind of a dark magenta color, it's about 80 to 100% of population served in that specific area is Hispanic Latino, for a total population of about 27,800. So we're looking 27,859. So you can see on that map the concentrations across the district. On the next page, please. This is the breakout of your trustee areas. You can see that the trustee area number 3 is the peach color, and that is the largest area, but certainly has this smallest population that is served within its boundary. And then of course there's the blue, which is trustee number 4, and then 1 and 2. I don't need to read them off. You all can see where you all are, but the concentration of population is in that southeast regional area. We can go to the next page, please. And this is where we're going to do the calculation. So just to help you kind of think it through, the total population now served is at about 136,662. You're going to divide that evenly by 5, since we have 5 trustee areas. So our ideal size is 27,300 in your specific trustee areas. When we get to the calculation of how we're trying to figure out what that variance is, you'll look to trustee area number 5, which has a population variance increase of about 14%, and then look to trustee area number 3. That has a decrease of about a loss of about 9.5%. So you take your greatest and your least, or the lost amount. So it's about 31,182 minus the 24,735, and you get your number of about 6,447 in difference. You take your 6,447 and you divide that by the ultimate, or the identified perfect quote unquote number of 27,332. That's going to give you your variance of about 23.588% or 23.6%. That's how we get our variance number. Next page, please. So what do we do about this? The idea is to try to keep as balanced as possible. And so you take your population and divide it by the trustees, and you're trying to build your ideal area size. As Peter mentioned, you don't want a difference greater than the largest or the smallest greater than 10%. So that's kind of your sweet spot. And you also don't want to move your boundaries in a way that would dilute the protected class, and in this case, the Latino community that's in our area. What else we have to consider is that you also don't want to be thinking about bizarre shapes of areas. We know that we've seen that with, shall we say, the happenings of what we see right now in different congressional districts across the country. What we want to be doing here for schools, school trustee areas, is being thoughtful and making them a logical kind of a rebalancing so that the boundaries make sense. You can consider, for example, using man-made boundaries or natural geographic features such as rivers or roadways. Then that makes more sense for people understanding exactly how these are going to be rebalanced. And you also want to encourage the community's trust, where you're keeping communities together that have shared social as well as economic characteristics. You might want to think of, I go back to my life and times in Pennsylvania, which you look at the Amish people and the Mennonite populations. You didn't want to be breaking up those communities. You want to try to keep those like communities together. So that's something to be thinking about as well. And then you also want to make sure that you're being thoughtful about how your adjustments impact the community. You know your community better than anybody else. And so when you're thinking about how you readjust your boundaries, you want to be cognizant of those challenges and or issues and or benefits that come along with the thoughtfulness of your redistricting. And with that, I'm happy to open up to questions.
So is the suggestion that we take a hearing and 2 drawn maps at the next meeting? Is that what the process is being suggested?
I think the process being suggested is that the demographer will draw maps, 2 or 3 maps for you to choose from. And it won't be a complete redraw, but by looking at the current maps and where the large population differences are, it may be some significant changes to some of the areas in order to bring it back into balance. To bring those maps back for review, advertise that, have a public hearing, and make sure that the public is aware and can share their comments. You can actually even create interactive maps on the website beforehand so that you can get some public feedback before then. And if you feel that you've received sufficient public feedback at that time, you could have the public hearing and pick one of the draft maps at that time. The timeline for it is it has to be completed no later than February 28th, because we have to turn that information and the new map into the county Committee on School District Organization and the registrar by March 1st.
Okay, and they have to approve it by April. Is that, I remember the April date in there. Was that their approval? Okay. Okay.
And the reduction in trustee area 3, is that negative 9.5%? Is that due to the military being counted differently? Do we know?
I don't know that. I'd have to go back and review how that worked, but it's just the loss of population that we have to readjust.
Okay, just curious.
Yep.
Okay. Any more questions?
So we're gonna get maps back at our next meeting. Is that what I'm hearing?
So I'm not exactly sure what your next date is. I know on my schedule we have the maps will be ready for December 14th. And we're to have 2 to 3 scenarios for him and for your superintendent prior to that time. So I'm not sure what the date is of your next board meeting in December after the 14th.
Our December meeting is December 14th. So
we'd have to have it before then.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
So Eric, to answer your question more directly, we can do it one of two ways. We can put it on for a public hearing in December, and the public hearing would be right before the vote, or we could put it on for public hearing in December and have you vote in January. It just depends how much of a runway everyone believes we need to give, and that might really depend on what the maps actually look like and how different they are.
Yeah.
So my recommendation, I guess, for us would be to do a public hearing that day. Since the map is just then going to be coming viewable, the public won't have time leading up to that meeting to have reviewed it. So it would be a lot to ask for meaningful feedback in one day and then vote on it that day. So I would request that we vote in January if possible.
I would support that. I think if we're going to have any meaningful public be able to chance to look at it, we make our December 14th meeting the first time we really see it and make it then available to the public and bring it back, schedule a final vote or plan a final vote in January. Unless we see something on the 14th ourselves where we want to do something crazy and send some other direction. But otherwise, if it looks pretty good that way, we can get the public to look at it and get a chance for us to see it even a few days before December 14th meeting would be ideal too.
I can support that as well.
Sounds good. We'll make it a public hearing in December and bring it back for a vote in January.
Perfect.
Great, thank you.
I'll donate however many
as soon as we get the
I'll
map,
donate
we will
however
move
many
forward to
people you need. Sorry.
Yes,
Thank
what
you,
Peter
Peter.
was, what he was saying is, as soon as we have the map, we can post it to the website and provide it to the public so that people don't have to wait. So as soon as I have that from the demographers, we'll post it to the website.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Susan and Peter. All right, moving on.
Sorry, I blurted out there before earlier that I have, obviously in my district, I've got population going to come out from my district. So you guys can all grab them. However many folks you want to grab to make it even. Enough frivolity.
All right, so we're moving on to our next item, 7, personnel. Item 7A is a public hearing regarding the appointment of Board of Education appointee to the Personnel Commission of Oceanside Unified School District. I'm opening the public hearing, public comments at 7:07 p.m. Do we have any public comments on this item?
No, we do not.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:07 p.m. and move on to item 7B, appointment of Stephen Jepson as Board of Education appointee to the Personnel Commission of the Oceanside Unified School District.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. All right, we have a first and a second. Seeing no questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of supporting item 7B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to item 7C, English learner authorization for career technical education teaching credential holder.
Thank you, Dr. Begin. This item is for board approval to provide a waiver permit. It's called a variable term waiver for the EL authorization while we have an employee that is enrolled in a course to complete the EL authorization.
Thank you for the explanation. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of item 7C, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries 5-0. Item 8A was pulled from the agenda. So we're moving on to item 9, diversity, equity, and inclusion. 9A, the revision of criteria to reclassify English learners with IEPs or 504 plans.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Begin and trustees and Dr. Vitale. This item is for board approval to approve the revision of criteria to reclassify English language learners who have IEPs or 504 plans. In order to reclassify students receiving EL services, students must meet specific criteria defined by the state to exit the EL program. The state allows for local districts to recommend approval of changes to the criteria, which must be first approved by the District English Learner Advisory Committee, or DLAC. This happened on our October 5th DLAC meeting. Additionally, this allows for a wider consideration and a more comprehensive decision to be made in determining if a student's disability may or may not impact their English language proficiency and whether or not they can be exited from the program. This update also aligns with the CDE's alternate assessment IEP team guidance, which was last updated October 7th, 2021. So we bring this to board approval tonight, asking for approval for the revision of criteria to reclassify English language learners who have IEPs or 504s.
You're requesting a motion for that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Eleanor, for making a motion. I'll second that motion. Do we have any questions for Dr. Sparks? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of item 9A, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 10, that's policy development. Item 10A, approval of the continuation of electronic/virtual board meetings through the month of December. Staff presentation, and we also have 2 public comments on this item.
So as you're aware, Assembly Bill 361 extends the authority of school boards to hold electronic virtual board meetings through January 1st, 2024. If the board would like to continue to hold electronic meetings, then the determination must be made every 30 days. So you would be making a decision for any board meetings in December. Staff recommends that the Board of Education approve the continuation of the electronic board meetings through the month of December 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Let's hear public comment.
Tiffany Ketchum and Lisa Farrell.
Hello, Tiffany. You have 3 minutes for public comment, and you're up when you're ready.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Tiffany Ketchum, and we've been with OUSD for over 15 years with multiple kids with special needs. I strongly believe in open communication and collaboration between parents, teachers, and admins. I'm the head admin for the Facebook group OUSD Parent Teacher Collective. We value sharing information and support for all issues our district, families, and teachers face, as well as linking us all into what's going on into our local community, because we believe it's better with more people getting involved. I want to thank the board for holding the meetings virtually in an equitable way that still allows us all to participate in public comments. We appreciate the Zoom access to meetings. As being an immune-compromised family and disabled, it's a huge risk to be in person online. To be in person. So online gives me access. Otherwise, I can't be there at all right now. And other people that are trying to stay well are possibly in the same situation. I'd like to ask the board to consider what type of meeting is actually getting the most participants joining, because that should weigh in heavily. I apologize, I'm a little shaking. That should weigh into what is working best during this time, plus what is accessible to all who want to participate without in-person capacity limits. As I've personally seen concerned parents and teachers be denied access to meetings when a hot topic has caused a meeting to exceed fire code occupancy limits. During in-person meetings, it's evident that people are not following mask use, even though they're on school property. And that's too unsafe for us. When the meetings are done in person, but it's being aired on the public service channels, those of us at home watching cannot comment, and that is not equitable or fair. I appreciate the TV access to the in-person meetings to at least be able to see, although I don't get that channel as we don't have cable. So I have to watch online. But if the meetings go back to in-person, there needs to be a way for people that are medically fragile or can't be there physically due to disability or sickness, etc., to be able to comment. The way the rules are currently, I've seen it bar others from comment because they are not there in person, and it has prohibited me from doing so as well. I think this is a time where we should expand access, not restrict it. Meetings should be accessible whether you're able-bodied, bed-bound, quarantining, disabled, at work, or even in the car. There are people that can be quarantining or recovering from COVID and could be well enough to comment virtually, but should not be coming to the location in person. Whatever is decided going forward must be fully accessible and safe for all at this time. Thanks for listening and considering what I've shared. If you can please publicly answer this, what is the participation numbers in virtual format versus in-person meetings? Thank you again.
Thank you, Tiffany. Our next speaker.
Hi, good evening. I completely agree with everything Tiffany just said. Good evening, school board members and Dr. Vitale. My name is Lisa Farrell. I'm a parent of a Reynolds student and a 10-month-old future OUSD student. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you virtually tonight. During COVID, we were all forced to learn Zoom out of necessity, but there's been some great benefits to transitioning to these virtual meetings. We've seen increased participation in board meetings and parent meetings because of the increased accessibility for families. Families no longer have to have the privilege of time or transportation to travel across town for an in-person meeting just to be able to participate. Recently, there were several facilities meetings regarding Reynolds, my son's school, and I was able to attend all of these meetings because they were virtual. As a working parent and the parent of a baby, I would not have been able to attend all of them if they had been in person. Before COVID, I frequently attended board meetings and DPAC meetings, and in the winter time, especially, these meetings only had a handful of parents in attendance. Online, parents have been able to attend, hundreds of parents have been able to attend board meetings and participate by making public comments. Just broadcasting them, like Tiffany said, doesn't give parents the ability to participate and comment publicly. So please continue with the virtual format to give parents a greater ability to stay informed and participate in their children's education. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that concludes our public comment on that item. We have a first and a second. On item 10A, do we have any questions or board discussion?
Yeah, just briefly. I'm going to vote for it this month, but next month I'd like I'm likely not to support it next month unless we have a big drawback in our COVID progress. The Zoom has been very accessible, and while we don't get count numbers on KOCT, I don't think we can actually compare the attendance because we don't know how many people actually are streaming it through KOCT. And then I do think it's a fair point, though. If we want to think about participation as far as providing comment, there are ways that we could do telephone commentary or possibly even Zoom commentary when we come back in person. And if we're really focused on that being the reason, then I think we should probably have that conversation next month. But for this month, I'll be in favor of the proposal.
I fully support it this month, and I even going forward, I'm leaning towards supporting it in the ensuing months for several reasons. But the most is that I do think you can compare pretty well. I mean, we've never had 900 people at a meeting, and we had that last year during our Zoom meeting. So we've got 90 tonight, give or take a few there. We hardly got 90 people in our at live meeting. So I'm supportive of the concept. I wasn't 6 months ago, but I've grown more supportive of it as I've seen it work. And aside from tonight's technological hiccups, it's been pretty smooth, and we're all learning it. So that's how I'm feeling today, anyway. I support it.
I'm in support.
Really sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Eleanor.
Okay. I'm very much in support of Zoom and continuing Zoom because we've had a huge audience compared to the in-person meetings. In addition to KOCT, since they're on YouTube, you are able to see how many people have actually watched that particular meeting. So I think more of our citizens, more of our parents, can observe how we're doing, can focus and participate. And plus, other districts, are observing and watching us. Thank you.
Just for the record, we don't see how many people stream KOCT. The YouTube would be people who watch it after the fact. So if we had 900 people watching our last live meeting on KOCT, we would never know that because it's shielded from our understanding.
I'll concede that point, but we don't have that number and we'll never get it. So
I know I have to, I prefer this environment obviously right now because it's just better for me at this point, transporting oxygen and stuff. But as far as numbers go, when we look at numbers, I know that when we had KOCT meetings as opposed to the meetings like we have currently, I know that there's more response from families by email back regarding different things that we're talking about. I know I get more response now than I did before when we were just doing a KOCT. And I don't know if it's just because of the topics that we currently have, but I know that I do see a change in numbers in that. So I know that for me, at least for the end of this year, because I don't know where things are for me, that this environment just does work. And because there are different things that are going on, I do want to be able to hear from the community more than not, and to give them a platform to be able to do that, especially for families like, different ones that we have within our community that do rely only on this way and ability to communicate to us. So I just prefer this right now for them.
Thanks for sharing. With all that said, let's call for a vote.
I actually had a question real quick before we started. Do we have, how does our KOCT contract fit into this since we're not utilizing the service?
Yeah, we've kind of put it on pause with them. They desperately want us to go back in person so that they can come film, but we've put it on pause.
Yeah, the only reason is that our conversation is much easier in person too. So I just like collaborating with you. I miss y'all.
Me too. Need a hug, huh?
All right. All right. With that said, I'm going to call for the vote on item 10A. All in favor of continuing with the virtual meeting for next month in December, say aye.
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 And I do miss a hug, by the way.
Motion carries 5-0. All right. Moving on to item 10B, approval of replacement of board policy 3312 contracts.
Thank you. This policy is being updated to reflect new laws for entering into certain types of contracts. The law mandates policy when the district chooses to enter into a contract with a third party for digital storage, maintenance, or retrieval of student records. This also updates the section for contracts for non-nutritious foods or beverages. And lastly, the update adds a new section reflecting the requirements for contracts for personal services. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the proposed replacement to Board Policy 3312 contracts.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All right, I got a first and a second. You guys are quick. Any questions for Dr. Norman? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of item 10B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Aye.
Moving on. A little slow on the uptake there. Motion carries 5-0. If you just raise your hand, then I'm doing that one. Item 10C, approval of replacement of board policy 3312, 11.2 Education Travel Program Contract.
Thank you. This policy is being updated to clarify the Board of Education's responsibility to approve contracts for educational travel programs and adds contract components that were formerly in the AR. These include, but are not limited to, details of the organization's business information, description of services, costs, experience of training of staff, and the educational program being contracted. The superintendent shall establish procedures for selecting the highest quality vendor, taking into account safeguards for student safety, quality of the educational program, and fiscal integrity. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the proposed replacement to Board Policy 3312.2, Educational Travel Program Contracts.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving item 10C, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 10D, approval of replacement of board policies 4119.22, 4219.22, 4319.22, dress and grooming.
Thank you, Dr. Begin, for reading those policies. This is again a replacement for those three that would include information to reflect the new law SB 188, which specifically prohibits discrimination against traits historically associated with race, including hair texture and protective hairstyles such as braids, locks, and twists. This new board policy would replace our existing board policy from 2010 with the updated language I just mentioned.
I'll make a motion to adopt that, especially since as a young school teacher, I was sent home because of my hair.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions? Board colleagues? Seeing none.
Not to make light of that. Not to make light of. No, go ahead. Go ahead, vote. I'm sorry.
No. I'm having fun. Anyways, all in favor of approving?
I was say all in favor say aye, right?
I didn't finish. You were going, so I didn't want to cut you off. Here, let's call for the vote, and then you guys will make a comment. All right, all in favor of approving item 10D, sorry, I was losing track there. 10D, say aye.
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 All right. Motion carries 5-0. Mike,
If we were in the room, I would have. If we were in the room, I would have said to Eleanor that I got thrown out of school for my long hair in my back in my day.
You are a hippie. I can see that.
Not that funny, but better in the room.
It is.
Yes.
Anyway,
Better in the room. You didn't hear me.
No, I had students. I had students.
You too, Eleanor.
That would be suspended, and it's like, why are you making such an issue? In 12 more years, he's going to be bald. You know, let him enjoy it.
Horrible.
All right. So item 10E, I would like to pull this item. So we're not going to vote on it tonight, but we'll bring it back next month. My board colleagues okay with that?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So
Yes, Stacy, we'll work with you on rewrites and bring it back next month.
Sounds perfect. Thank you for doing that. Next item, item 10F, revision to board policy 5112.3, student leave of absence.
Thank you, Dr. Begin. This board policy last updated in 2010 covers students' leaves of absence. The board policy recognizes that students who are 15 years of age or older may have opportunities for education outside of school and be granted a leave of absence. This update actually encourages our students to engage in our independent study program so that they can continue their education remotely while they also pursue other educational opportunities.
Thanks for the explanation. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
First and a second. Any questions for Dr. Levy?
I just have a couple, just real quick. So in doing this, are we tracking, like if we do have students that do take a leave of absence, and that are going and using Surfside so that we know that they're utilizing those services, and that they're getting what they need out of there. So are we tracking that?
Yes, currently we don't have any students on leave of absence at this time, although the board policy does limit it to no more than 1% of the total population in any given school year.
All right, we have a first and a second. We'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving item 10F, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the final one, item 10G, revision to board policy 6115, ceremonies and observances.
So board policy allows for us to be able to celebrate significant historical opportunities, outstanding contributions of people, and recognize those through school closures and holidays. All of these events can be moved at the board discretion to different days other than Veterans Day. And this policy update also includes the ability to display banners and flags in support of specific awareness months as set forth by our board.
Is it limited? Does it say specifically banners and flags in the policy?
It does.
Okay. Can we add a language and other displays of solidarity so it's not limited to those?
Yes, absolutely, we could.
Okay. So with that amendment, I would support it so that we could potentially do some sort of light displays or something that is not strictly covered under those two phrases.
So Eric,
I'm confused. Go ahead. What would be an example of additional, items you're talking about?
yeah, Eric, what I'd like to do is work with you on that language. I don't think we want to just leave it open, but I hear where you're going with lighting. So why don't we, if you want to think of other things in addition to lighting, we can bring it back, but I would like more specificity than leaving it open. So why don't we talk that through and we'll bring it back?
It works for me.
But I like the lighting idea, and I know Mike Blessing likes that lighting idea. So I'd like to have that conversation.
So are we pulling this?
Yeah, we're going to pull this one.
Well, we're not going to pass it as it stands, so that it closes up.
No, the verbiage should be right and not limiting to just certain things the way you're saying. So it would be better to pull it, I would think, to have the verbiage.
Yeah, we'll bring it back. Yeah, let's pull it.
Okay.
And just like the other policy 10E, we'll work on some rewrite and we'll bring it back in December.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. All right, so we're to our final agenda item, our favorite one. This is public comments on non-agenda items. We are happy to receive comments about items and issues on tonight's agenda, as well as topics that do not appear on the agenda. Each person has 3 minutes, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Givens to call people up.
Okay, we have 5 public comments. Todd Madison, Rosie Higuera, Judy Hurd, Susan Custer, and Brad Tobias. We'll start with Mr. Madison.
All right, thanks, Ann. I appreciate that. In the last meeting, we heard from the president of the teachers union, Tiffany Ortega, who seemed upset I had highlighted the effect of the recent extra bonus raises on her own compensation. Apparently, it's off limits to point out the person responsible for the negotiations resulting in those raises stood to increase her total compensation from $194,000 to $203,000 a year. I appreciate her recap of all the good things she does for the district. I'm not quite sure who that was addressed to. I've never questioned her abilities or dedication to teaching. I assume she must have had questions about that come up elsewhere. I'm sure she's a great teacher, a good person, does exceptional work with our kids, and in her spare time helps little old ladies cross the street. I have no reason to believe any of that is not true. Just like there's no reason to believe that her total compensation for 2020, as listed in the pay record, is obtained through a legal public records request to Oceanside Unified, shows she did indeed receive $194,311 in total compensation. Unlike Ms. Ortega, I do not believe the district responded to a legal public records request in an illegal manner. I'm not going to accuse the district of that, even if Ms. Ortega is. Since we can assume Ms. Ortega would make sure she knew how much her total compensation is before speaking, that would mean either Ms. Ortega is not aware of her compensation or spent 3 minutes lying to the board and the public. Could this be to deflect from criticism about enormous raises that will require cuts from our kids? Taking candy from babies, in other words? Is lying to the board and the public allowable under the district's ethics or code of conduct? Will we see any disciplinary action being taken? Meanwhile, on to how do we fix problems like this. With apologies to Eleanor for the repetition, she saw me give this talk last night. School choice is the answer, of course. Californians for School Choice now has its petition out, gathering signatures to get on the ballot in November 2022. We're going to take all the funding the state provides for K-12 education, split it up, that's about $14,000 per student this year, and put it into a trust account to be applied to tuition at any accredited school. If a parent likes their public or charter school, they can stay there, nothing changes. We're simply allowing parents who disagree with the way our schools are run to choose something else for their kids. And if the option chosen costs less than $14,000, the remainder accumulates and can be used for college or vocational education after graduation. If a parent is homeschooling on a private affidavit and has no tuition cost, they could end up with over $180,000 per child to spend on that education, with no increase in taxes. How could we craft a better plan for our kids? Join us by going to californiaschoolchoice.org and adding your name to our email distribution so you can be notified when we're going to be somewhere in your area collecting signatures. You can even volunteer to help in that effort, and I'll connect with you to find ways to do that. That's californiaschoolchoice.org, californiaschoolchoice.org. We can make our schools pay attention to parents. We can do this. Thank you.
Boy. Oh boy.
Next speaker, Rosie Figueroa.
Yes, hi. I am a parent of Oceanside kids that have already graduated, but it looks like this school board needs oversight and they need parents to be monitoring their actions because you are not working in favor of our kids and you do not represent our community or the values in our community. We are not for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Eleanor, I'm not sure why you felt the need to go to an LGBTQ meeting when that is the minority and not the majority. Why are we catering to the minority? Also, the CRT, the critical race theory, it is not something that we want taught to our children. We reject all of this racism and communist ideology. Also, this ethnic studies has no business in our schools. This is something that is maybe appropriate for high schoolers or college, but it has no business being taught to our students as it is divisive and it is not something that we want for our kids. We need to bring our kids back to learning things that they can actually use in real life, such as balancing a checkbook. We need to also teach them things like respect for parents and authority, the Constitution, and how our constitutional rights are getting stripped from us. We, as parents, we also reject this idea that schools, school boards, and children have rights when it comes to medical issues such as getting an abortion without parental consent. That is absolute BS and hogwash. And also wanted to touch on this raise, superintendent, that you seem to have given yourself of $345,000. That is absolutely despicable. And the board, blessing Eleanor, Raquel, you all have a responsibility to these families to be the checks and balances for Vitaly. And if you're not doing that, then you need to resign from your position because you're doing a disservice to the families here. And so parents are getting really fed up with the way you guys are running things. You're not in the interest of our children. It's obvious with all of these crazy curriculums that you are approving of that is detrimental to families and to our community. And so we're coming after your seats, board members. Either do your job or move out of the way. And that's all I have to say.
I did just want to take a second before we move on to the next comment that our students who are LGBTQ deserve to be recognized as affirmed as part of our district, and we do not stand by any comments to disparage them or participation in any activities that look to affirm their existence as vital to the future of our district. So I just want to say that before we move on. Thank you.
I also want to add that I was invited to that and was no cost to the district, if you're implying that. Thank you.
Next speaker will be Susan Custer.
Susan, you're up. Let's try the next speaker and come back to Susan. Who's next?
Tobias.
Hello, Brad.
Hello, and good evening, and thank you for this time to speak about what I want to talk about. So the first thing is, I might be kind of late in this, as you've already talked about voting on the platform for these meetings, via Zoom or not. But in my opinion, get off Zoom. I checked today. The COVID rates are down. They're going down, and they've been going down since September. It's not a big COVID. Yes, it's out there, but we shouldn't be afraid to hold in-person meetings. As an example, as of on Sunday night, there's a night of worship down at Oceanside Amphitheater. There's over 1,000 people there. No social distancing, no mask. Everything was fine. They weren't afraid. My church regularly has as many people, actually, if probably more, than there are in-person Oceanside meetings. They're at Chavez Middle School. So if that can't happen, then I suggest doing like a hybrid method where you're in person KOTC and also Zoom. That way you can go ahead and reach the maximum amount of people so they can understand what's going on within our district. Another thing on this topic is let's have a question and answer session to the public where us as parents can ask you guys questions and you guys can answer them. I brought this up to you in a private meeting with Dr. Vitale, and she basically shut it down. Basically said it's not going to happen. I feel like it needs to happen. My second point, balance the budget. As it was stated last meeting, the district is going to be in the red big time. Tens of millions of dollars. All right, that's unacceptable, completely unacceptable. And eventually, all these COVID type fundings, the ESSERs, the CARES, the other grants, they're going to go away. So, in that, being in the red, not good. So, in short, if you cannot balance the budget, then you have failed us in your jobs, and you need to be replaced or recalled. Thank you for the time.
Susan Custer.
Can you hear me? Yeah. You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Susan.
Okay. I'd like to talk about on page 12 of the Ethnic Studies course outline, unit number 11, whiteness. It's first I'd like to say what the definition of whiteness is, according to Nikki Cole. In sociology, whiteness is defined as the characteristics and experiences generally associated with being a member of the white race and having white skin. Whiteness comes with a wide variety of privileges. Again, she says whiteness comes with a wide variety of privileges. So in the outline, it says that you will study what is the history of whiteness as a racial category and white privileges that are tied to, and what privileges are tied to whiteness. So the question I have is, why are we so focused on emphasizing to the kids of all races that white people have privileges that others do not? It would seem we want kids to look at each other as equal, no matter what their color is. When I grew up in the South in the 60s, that's what we were taught. Supposedly, the South comes with a lot of racism back in the 50s and 60s. The school I went to, the neighborhood I was in, we were taught to accept all. There were mixed races there, and we were taught to accept them and get along. Later it says, again on page 12 under whiteness, students will participate in a simulation where they will be asked a series of questions and be asked to take one step forward if they can answer yes to the prompts. The prompts will be centered around scenarios where being white gives you power or privilege. So the prompts are centered around scenarios where being white gives you power or privilege. That is a direct quote from the Oceanside Unified School District course outline. So you are focusing on proving to all the kids that being white gives you privileges. A few questions, I'm not sure which questions you'll be using, but a few questions that I found in some of these type of quizzes online are: if you grew up with people of color or working.
Thank you, Susan, for your comments.
There aren't any more. We're done.
All right. So we are through with public comment. We are on our last item, item 12. Is there any board or staff discussion? Anyone?
May I make an announcement? Okay, I'm up for re-election to the California School Board Association, and I plan to, with the board support, to run for re-election. CSBA, I feel with my input and some other folks that it can be a much more viable organization than it currently is.
All right.
I think Mike, you're on mute.
Do we vote as a board, or does that come to us individually on the CSBA delegation, or so we can remind me of what we do, or we can talk about it later. Someone can talk to me about it later, Eleanor.
Okay. I'm just making the announcement. You know, we'll go through the whole process.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, super.
Got it.
I don't have anything tonight. No, you're good. I don't have anything else tonight. Anybody else? All right.
Good night.
Yeah, sorry.
Love y'all.
Yeah, I thought Raquel was about to speak. Raquel, did you have something?
I did. I thought you were talking. That's why I didn't. I was waiting for you to finish. Sorry. I actually did have something. I wanted to bring up. I know we're looking at SLR and the remods for that, and a couple of things. We had them go back and name their school, and it's a performing arts school. And so I know that when we're looking at the remod part of the school, one of the things that has come up and continues to come up is the NPR and the height of the NPR. And I know I went on this wonderful field trip and I saw this amazing NPR at this one school, and I kind of really want that kind of an NPR for these students, because if it is a performing arts school, that low ceiling just is not going to work. And then we're looking also at we celebrate our students and the things that they do and how they present and the things that they go out and they do, and they're talking about energy and this, you know, the green waste and everything else that they do. So we celebrate what they're doing. So since we're modernizing our schools now and we're starting to do that at different sites and we're looking now at Reynolds and doing this whole thing there, then why can we not focus on with SLR, because we haven't even broken ground there to have the conversations of solar there. So solar lighting, like even the solar things that are at different schools in the county and stuff. So if we could look at things like that as we start to go through this process, and I know it delays it, it puts a little bit more money into it, but if we're going to do something, we need to start doing it right so that we're not going back later and then having to fix something because we didn't do it the first time, or if we're going to be looking at what the city's doing for future is what they're wanting to go in green, then if we can start doing it now and as we're fixing our schools, that we can look at those things now also. But my biggest thing is again the NPR and making that room where it becomes that sound, where we're going to push the sound the way it needs to be for these students, because it is a performing arts school, because that's what they're calling it. So if we can bring that back to the table or have somebody look into that differently, or if we can do something with that. Again, it adds a little bit more to the timetable, but if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And I think that's my biggest issue right now, of just doing something right the first time and not having to go back and fix it.
I think your concerns have been noted.
So to recircle back to the note that I planted at the beginning of the meeting, the youngest teachers, K-1-2, are asking for more bodies to help with students with special needs that haven't been identified over the last year and a half because of the pandemic and the processes that have been disrupted. And I know we have a focus on special ed over the next year and a process that's going forward there. But I think outside of the long-term solutions that we have some short-term serious needs. So I would like to hear specifically how we're going to get reduced caseloads or someone to come in to do assessments for our speech and language pathologists or our ed specialists who are feeling very overburdened. And I know that I am feeling exhausted because of just the long time that we've been in this like drowning mode of being in a pandemic. And I'm sure that others are feeling that way, but they're experiencing this very unique high threshold of problems. So I'm hoping we can get some kind of solution back on that at our next meeting. I also heard about volunteer processes that are happening at the school sites that include fingerprinting and TB testing for all volunteers. And the process also requires them to go to HR and then back to the school site and then back to HR. And I was wondering if we could be thinking about the families that are of high need that would, when you're adding more and more steps to the process, it complicates their access to be a volunteer in the schools. And so I'd like us to really consider that when looking at that process and implementing it. And then we have census tracts that are within our boundaries that are extremely low compared to the county. So vaccination status is very low. And as a public serving institution, I think we have a responsibility to bring the vaccination to the students and families that we serve. Do we have any other vaccination events planned right now?
Stacy, none of this is agendized for conversation or consideration. So what I'll say to the part about fingerprinting and the process for volunteers is our number one priority is student safety. So the regulations and the rules that we have are there to protect students. So can we figure out processes? We'll make sure that people don't have to go back and forth. But as far as changing the fingerprinting, the TB test, and the other requirements that we have, we're not going to adjust those. That's our board policy. That's not what I heard you say. What I heard you say was something about the process. I don't have agreement here that that's what was communicated. But again, I'll just reiterate, none of this is agendized for discussion. And so I don't think we should have any further discussion about these items.
I agree.
And your question about vaccination, I'll check into that and get back to you on that, Eric.
All right. No further board or staff discussion. I will adjourn the meeting at 7:54 p.m. Thank you, board colleagues and district, for doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.